Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Uncorked. This is Holly.
And this is Gina.
And Gina, we have a what? Rockstar in the house. Other people have coined her that. Now, we would have coined her that.
Yeah, which we're a little mad about that.
We are mad.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
but we're going to get even with them because we're going to call her a female pioneer of science and metaphysics.
Ooh.
Let me continue. Okay, so
pioneer.
Pioneer, female, like all these powerful things.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
But her background is an award-winning journalist.
Yes.
And she's the author of 7 books, including international bestsellers, The Power of 8, The Field, The Intention Experiment, and The Bond.
I like The Bond.
Absolutely. And these books are actually considered seminal books of new science. So we're going to talk about science, metaphysics. It's so exciting.
She's a seminal pioneer.
She is. Absolutely. And she's consistently voted one of the world's top 100 spiritual leaders for her groundbreaking work with consciousness and the power of intention. We're going to get to that. And we're so excited. We've crossed our fingers and our toes, although I don't think I can cross my toes. Lynne McTaggart is in the LOA Uncorked house. Welcome, Lynne.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with both of you.
Oh,
it's so good to have you.
Oh my God. Thank you for setting all your other seminal pioneer duties aside for us and sharing some time and a conversation that I know our audience will love and take so much from. So thank you. So Lynne, typically how we start our podcast is just an opportunity for you to kind of share with those who are listening who don't know as much about you as Holly and I have as much as Holly and I do, and ask for you to kind of share a little bit about your background, kind of the hallmarks of Lynne, kind of a 3 to 5 minute highlight reel of who you are and kind of just to ground the conversation and really set us up for the rest of the discussion today.
Okay. I started out life after university as an investigative reporter. I was one of those people who had hidden tape recorders, and one of my big successes was cracking a bunch of international baby selling rings, and particularly by posing as an unwed mother and then later as an adoptive parent. So that was my background. And I segued into this work by accident because when I moved to the UK, I set up a magazine with my husband, Brian Hubbard, largely because I'd been ill. I got better finally by meeting a real pioneer in integrative medicine way back many years ago. And it was so impressive that I got boring on the subject and I started telling everybody. And Brian said, stop telling your friends, and me, start telling the world. So we set up this newsletter, now a magazine, called What Doctors Don't Tell You. In the course of doing that, I kept coming across really good studies of spiritual healing. Mm-hmm. And my curiosity was piqued. I thought, if you can have a thought and make somebody else better, that undermines everything we think about how the world works. So I decided to try to investigate this, and I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was on a journey without a compass. And I talked my publishers into backing this journey. So I thought I was going to find energy systems. I thought I was going to find that humans have particular kinds of energy systems. What I didn't expect to find was a completely new science, a new view of the world. And after talking to a bunch of frontier scientists, that's exactly what I found, to my astonishment. Each of them had found a little piece of what compounds into a completely new science, a new scientific story. So that became my book, The Field, and all of my subsequent books. I got hijacked into this subject. All of my subsequent books have been curiosity and enthusiasm to find out more.
Okay, listen.
I love stealthy Lynne.
I had no idea. I've always wanted to do that.
Glimmer in her eye.
I've always wanted to I wanted to be like a private detective when I was young. I wanted to like be wired
still
up
is
and
a
stuff.
detective.
I know, absolutely.
This is how she found her.
Just she doesn't have to hide the recorders anymore, right? Like you don't have to do that anymore.
I have some. I have some attached to my phone. Occasionally, I do need to do it. I wanted to be Lois Lane. I wanted to be Brenda Starr, reporter.
For sure. Me too.
That was my plan. And of course, journalists back then were really revered as the new heroes and heroines.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
that was going to be my trajectory, and I have veered off into this. But that investigative zeal, that natural skepticism has never left me, and it's served me in good stead with all of this work too.
Clearly. So did you have a metaphysical understanding or belief structure or alignment when you were ill and went to see the functional medicine practitioner? Or was this like a whole new world for you?
It wasn't a whole new world. I was one of those kids who grew up in a family of fast food and packaged food and processed food. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was into granola and health food. So I was always interested in that. And I was also interested in certain kinds of esoterica. So I was interested in astrology. I was interested in witchcraft. I was an early TM meditator. All of those things fascinated me. But it wasn't until I got ill that I really got into alternative medicine. When I was living in America in my 20s, I wrote some articles for the New York Times magazine, and they would veer into science and medicine sometimes, but it wasn't my main subject. Right. When I got ill, nobody could figure out what was wrong with me, and I went from conventional doctor to alternative doctor and alternative practitioner to the very outer rim of alternative practice to try to find out what was going on. These days, it would have been so easy. It was a faulty microbiome and a bit of this and a bit of that, and I would have been fine. They didn't know, and this was very new way back then. Right. So it was me who found this functional medical doctor who was a nutritional pioneer, almost unknown in the UK at that time. And I researched what I thought I had, and then I researched him and went to him, and together we got me better. And I was so impressed by the fact that he was treating me as an equal partner, which didn't happen back then. Mm-hmm. And also that he was mainly using nutritional medicine. And all of these things made me want to tell the world about it. And so that became our newsletter now magazine, What Doctors Don't Tell You, which talks about evidence for alternative medicine and also debunks a lot of beliefs about conventional medicine.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, we've had a guest on here, and then we were talking about homeopathy and getting really deep in the subject. And I'm like, well, why don't people talk about cell salts and the thing? I mean, it has to be big pharma. It has to be, all those things that, why don't we know these go-to things that are easy? They're cost effective. And
they're naturally intense.
So
that's what they're intended to be.
I mean, it's confounding that we're sitting here today still not having that broad understanding.
Yeah.
I think it's even worse than broad understanding. I think big pharma has really choked off the conversation. Most people who don't believe in homeopathy say, well, it's impossible. It's just water. It can't really be that. And the problem is they're ignorant of the science about it. There is science I wrote about in my book, The Field, about Jacques Benveniste, the late biologist who discovered that water has a memory. Discovery that Luc Montagnier, the co-discoverer of HIV, went on to investigate and confirm, as did about 48 other labs. But people don't understand that water actually is like a tape recorder. It tape records the essential energy of other molecules, and that's why it works. But it seems to work because these giant dilutions make that substance more powerful. But he just goes against every kind of mechanistic medical model, which is why people don't understand it. But, we write about things like this all the time and demonstrate, how they work. And my goodness, I brought my kids up on homeopathy, and it reached the parts that almost nothing else reaches.
Yeah. It's astounding.
It really is. Yeah. No, it was a great episode, and we both have started the cell salts. I mean, we're all about it now. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot to take in. It's not overwhelming, but it's new to all of us because there has been zero conversation about it. So fascinating.
Speaking of new, and our audience may not know the wonderful experiments you've done with the power of 8. And I love that. I'm just going to put a little plug in here. Okay. I love that you had the power of 8 intention for the Iranian women. Yeah. I love that. So thank you so much for doing that. I was like, we should do that again. We should just do our own group. Power of intention.
Yes.
So I love that you did that. Thank you for highlighting that. I think that we have to continue to talk about that. And even when this is released, I'm sure it's still going on. It's a major issue. So please tell our audience your just astounding information regarding the power of 8.
So good.
Okay, well, it started with bigger experiments. After I'd written the field, there was a bit of unfinished business there. There were a lot of scientists who were doing studies in the lab that I wrote about, demonstrating that thoughts are not only things, but things that affect other things, that they're trespassers. They can essentially trespass into other people and other objects and affect them. And I thought, whoa, again, skeptical reporter at heart. I'd heard about that and researched that. I'd also heard lots about manifestation and the law of attraction. And the skeptical reporter in me said, okay, well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about something very minor, like shifting a quantum particle, or are we talking about curing cancer or ending war with our thoughts? So I wanted to test it. And I figured, well, I know lots of scientists after doing this book, working in consciousness research. And I also have loads of readers because the field by then was in 30 languages. So I thought if I just bring them together, I can have the biggest global laboratory in the world. So that's what I did back in 2007. I started very small. One of the scientists I first worked with, Dr. Gary Schwartz, a psychologist at the University of Arizona, said, we have to take baby steps, Lynn, because I wanted to create peace in the world. He said, no, I think we'll start with a leaf. And then when we're done with that, we'll move on to seeds. So, okay, we did. We started trying to affect the subtle light emissions that come out of plants, like a leaf, geranium leaf. That worked. We moved on to seeds, trying to make them grow faster. That worked, and we ran it 6 times with controls, etc. We tried purifying water. That worked, whether we were in the field working with an absolute lake and taking samples of it, or water in the lab. And we moved on to war zones. And in 2007, we ran our first peace intention experiment and had an extraordinary response. So I was wondering to myself, well, this is all looking promising. I wonder if I could scale this down in a workshop. Well, I wasn't really sure how I could do that. And so I'm kicking it around with my husband, Brian, and some members of our team. And I said, I don't know, maybe I'll put them in groups of 8 or so and have them send healing intention to a member of the group with a health challenge. And we'll see what happens. And so we decided to do that in one of the first workshops I ran about this in 2008. And we didn't expect to have anything more than a very mild response, like getting your back rubbed or having a facial, nice relaxing effect. So we had we put people into groups, we had them do all of that. And by the way, my husband, who's such a great headline writer, said, when I said, we'll put them in groups of 8, he said, I love it, the power of 8. And that's how we got the title. That's how we got the title.
Oh my God, I love that. I like it.
That's how we got the title. We didn't think it was the power of anything. We were just experimenting.
He's a good hype man. He's a good hype man.
Yeah, he is a really good hype man. He is awesome. It on a stick. So the next day we do this with the people, and they all choose somebody with a health challenge. And the next day they come back and we say, well, let's hear how that was for you. Thinking, oh yeah, it was nice and relaxing, mild face, getting a facial type of thing. Mm-hmm. And they stood up and somebody said, I have arthritis and I've been limping and I limp all the time and I'm now walking normally. Somebody else said, I have depression, chronic clinical depression, and it feels like it's lifted. Somebody else said, I have IBS, really bad gut, and my gut's normal today. Somebody else said, I have cataracts and they're 80% better. So I was flabbergasted, as was Brian. And I thought, wow, what have we unleashed? And in fact, I was a little pissed off about it because I thought to myself, well, I'm not a healer. I don't do this. I write. I'm an investigative reporter. And I have all of those big experiments to do. And that was what I was, focusing on. Mm-hmm. But I was intrigued by this. And I thought, okay, every time I had a talk somewhere, I would put people in groups of 8 or so. Every time I did a workshop, I would put people in groups of 8 or so. And each time the same thing would happen. Amazing healings would occur right before my eyes. I've had 2 people get up out of their wheelchairs. One person paralyzed from the neck down after one 10-minute intention. Wow. I've had another woman with multiple sclerosis push her wheelchair away, and I've got these on video. I have countless people who have reversed genetic diseases. One woman had an issue, a liver genetic disease that enlarged her liver, resulted in fibrosis of the liver, enlarged spleen, and she was a candidate for a liver transplant. One 10-minute intention reversed completely. And she has a letter from 2 different doctors, 2 consultants, specialists, wow, saying your liver's normal. We've had people who were due for countless operations be able to cancel them. We had a woman who couldn't focus her eyes after a stroke and was immediately able to focus after one 10-minute intention. And then we've had the Power of 8 groups, which is what I do in a course I give called the Power of 8 Intention Masterclass. I put people in groups for a year and I work with them. And I have them meet with their group week after week after week, because it occurred to me after watching this around 2014 that, well, what would happen? So I've seen these miracles in one session. What would happen if people met week after week after week? Would everything heal in their lives if they had people intending for them all the time and intending for other people? And so the answer to that is the people who consistently meet, pretty much 100% of them experience some sort of major life change, some sort of transformation. And that's, it seems to me, the key. Meeting regularly, doing intention as a group regularly seems to be an amazing fast track to this kind of transformation. But I've literally seen thousands of people healed. So as I said, major hijacking going on here. I never expected to do this, but this whole process was gifted to me essentially. And so I now feel I must do this. I must bring this out to the world.
Sounds like it came through you for sure.
I guess it did. Mm-hmm. I guess it did.
So where do you get these magical 8 people? Like, are these like
they
normal
magical?
people like walking along this? Like, is there a criteria around these magical people that you have to meet this certain criteria to be magical enough?
We don't know that they're magical, Gina.
Well, I'm feeling like this seems like if we all have that power, to your point, Lynn, like why are we not all engaging in that in the world and making things better and smoothing the path for other people? So I'm curious if there's are we not qualified, Lynn?
Are we unqualified?
Are we not magical enough, Lynn? Or like, what does it take for is it just
we're untrained?
Is everybody able to help?
Untrained and unqualified.
Be a member of the Power of 8.
No, it doesn't require any special qualifications. Excuse me. I mean, we are born, all of us, born with this amazing gift and with a lot of extra human potential. The problem is, we know this as children, but it gets beaten out of us, so to speak, by authority figures who say, no, 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 no. This is how the world works. And they present a very mechanistic scientific story, which has been our scientific story for more than 300 years. A story of separate objects that operate according to fixed laws in time and space. But what we are now understanding and uncovering is a very different scientific story that says we are fundamentally all connected by a giant energy field, that we're all simply vibrating packets of energy. We're all energy, interacting and sharing energy with other beings and other living things on the planet. And we also have the power to heal. We have the power to heal ourselves, each other, and on finding out the world. So we don't make use of it because we're not trained to do it. We're not encouraged to do it. And so that's part of my job now, and that's what I do in my classes too. I show people how to do intention. It's not difficult, but there are about 13 keys to a mastery of intention. And there's also ways to use intention, not just to heal yourself, but to heal your finances, to heal your career, or to promote your career, to heal your relationships, to find a new relationship. Right. I love one of my students, Joy, was probably in her 60s, I guess. And she wanted to find love in her life. So her Power of 8 group intended for her to get this. Out of the blue, literally out of the blue. And she lives in Australia. It was lockdown. She gets a call from a boyfriend of hers from 35 years ago. And this is like the next week. And they start talking, they start engaging, and they then started having, regular phone calls. And the upshot is, as soon as he was allowed, he booked his ticket to Australia. They're living together now. So, I mean, just amazing. Awesome. So relationships, also life purpose. And with my master class, I show people also that you can use intention to get along with anybody. Anybody, even people who disagree with everything you stand for, even people you don't particularly like, even people you can't stand. You can get along with anybody. And I also show you how you can overcome doubt, negativity, all sorts of things with the power of intention and a number of techniques. So to try to find out how to do it, I studied masters of intention. Master healers, Buddhist monks, Qigong masters, and I took a number of their techniques that they had in common. They had lots of differences, but they also had certain commonalities. And I distilled them and also distilled what in the laboratory was really working into my, what I call 13 keys to intention mastery. So it's just about learning a technique. That's it. Yeah. Everybody can do it.
And it doesn't take that long. It's not like we're saying sit for hours you don't say that in your book. I know. It's like you don't have to sit for hours thinking, and if you lose that train of thought, you're done for. You got to start over. It's nothing like that. It's not that hard. So, but one of the keys that I found to be, I don't know if it's controversial, but it is something that I think we talk about manifesting all the time, but I'm not sure that we've talked
about... We talk about starting small, too.
Yes.
Like, all those same principles and practicing. Yep.
But one of the things that you say is be specific.
Yes.
And the granularity of what you talk about in your book, I was like, okay, I don't know.
I don't think we're specific enough. Yes.
So can you comment on that part of the program? Because oftentimes you just say, for my highest good, and,
or something better, or something better, or something better. Yes,
instead of saying, I want whatever. Okay, so.
Absolutely. Well, what we've noticed in our intention experiments is when we do something that is just very general, like sending love to water, it doesn't work. Nothing works. When we say we want to move it by 1 pH, it works. So I started recognizing that intention is a bit different from prayer. It's certainly different from meditation. And I know that from brainwave studies we've done on Power of 8 groups. With meditation, it's usually an attempt to have no mind, just to sink into the nowness. With prayer, it's a supplication. God, you decide for me. Thy will be done. I'll be your loyal servant in whatever you decide for me. And that's what I see is being very typical of saying, for my highest good. That's prayer. With intention, it's a thought of, it's a very specific request to the universe. And there's nothing wrong with asking it. Now, I do want to disabuse people of thinking, well, if I limit it, if I'm specific, the universe won't give me anything more. That's not true. I've seen many times where people do a very specific intention and then get even more than they asked for. But I'll tell you why you need it. Number one, people usually don't really know what they want. They will say things like, I want to be rich. When they don't mean they want to be rich. What they mean is in the sense of having lots of stuff and lots of money in the bank.
Yep.
What they mean is, I hate my job and I want a different job. And maybe if I win the lottery, I won't have to do that stupid job. Or they mean, I want more time to be with my children or my grandchildren or to pursue a hobby. So, and I think if I've got lots and lots of money in the bank, I don't have to stay with that stupid job. I'll have all of this money. So they don't really tell the universe what they want. They need to tell the universe they want more time. They need to tell the universe they want another job. Just tell the universe what you want. And I've seen this so much of the time too. When you're not specific, oftentimes you might bring about the wrong thing. For instance, I don't know if she was an intender, but let's take Heather Mills McCartney, Paul McCartney's ex-wife, his second wife after Linda. He met her at a charity event, and Heather Mills had been a very plucky northern lass from the UK who was quite attractive and wanted to be famous. She wanted to come down and make her fortune, etc. So she became what people call a glamour model, except she got hit by a motorcycle one day and it severed one leg below the knee. But being a very courageous young woman, she decided to carry on, and she would also be a champion for people who were, who had lost a limb. And that's when Paul McCartney met her. So he married her. And suddenly she was one of the most famous women in the world. But the marriage didn't last. After a few years, it started going sour. And the British press, which had been very kind to her, suddenly turned on her and started investigating her past, found out that she had, she had posed for numerous pornographic photos and had a field day. And suddenly this woman who wanted to be famous became infamous. So I always think of her as a perfect example of be careful what you wish for and make sure it is specific, because she wanted to be famous. She didn't specify, however, how.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, as well, because she wanted to be famous. She wanted to be in the limelight. She actually wanted to be a member of the royal family. She just didn't specify what she wanted to be in it, what she wanted to do. And, the press is very, very critical of her all the time. So, exactly. So I think being specific is really key. And it's something everybody gets wrong.
Yeah, so take it that extra step of I want to be famous for, or
Or
in a way
peel back
that
the onion.
yeah.
Underneath the fame.
Right.
Yeah, and very specific. I if you want to heal breast cancer, don't just say I want to be healthy. My intention is that I immediately overcome, or I'm free of, or I'm healed of all traces of breast cancer in my right breast and any metastases, particularly in the C2 section of my spine, so that I'm healthy and well in every way. So you just tell the universe exactly what you want to heal. Tell the universe exactly what you want.
So good. Yeah.
We have a friend of ours in this area that has a son with a significant aggressive cancer, and we had talked about getting the power of 8 and writing together that intention. And I, part of when we were talking about it with one of the group was, well, we don't want to get somebody's hopes up, and aggressive I know, she's smiling. Aggressive cancer can't be cured, and I was like, well, wouldn't you want to try? And so there was a part of us that were saying, well, let's just do it without them knowing. Yeah. So do the people have to know? Have you seen, can we do a power of 8 and just send it to the guy, and his mom doesn't even know?
You're asking this so you could sleep good at night, that we're going to do it anyway.
I don't like to listen to people anyway.
No, why would you really don't.
Okay.
No, I don't know why you're asking this.
Well, you mean this is the family. The family is saying we can't cure aggressive cancer. Wow. What a hopeless individual, in the sense of they don't have any hope. They're not holding out any hope. Here's what I have to say to that. Until somebody puts that person, that patient, in a box, there is always hope. I actually have a course I teach that's going on at the moment for professionals, because I had a health challenge a few years ago, not the one I was talking about earlier. And I went to various alternative practitioners, and they were good at what they did, but I was shocked by their language. Their language was so bad. It was things like, this is going to be a long and painful journey.
Yeah,
or,
I know.
You're a shadow of your former self. And I went, what? So it started becoming material for me, that people had so many preconceptions about healing. I mean, my mother-in-law had end-stage breast cancer, and she was too late for any conventional treatment. So we brought her to a doctor who was an integrative practitioner, and her breast was raw meat. Her general practitioner had recoiled when he examined her. When Patrick, this doctor we brought her to, looked at it, he said, I was in the room when he did this, giving her moral support. He examined her and he said, we can handle that. And I knew at that moment she was going to be healed, because she was being given hope. And hope is the best medicine there is. There's way too much mind-body stuff and evidence, placebo effects. I mean, there's a 61% difference between the outcome of patients with a positive statement by their doctor, like, hey, I can handle that, he can handle that, compared to, I don't know, I'm not sure there's really any point here, but let's give it a go. That 61% difference in outcomes. So that, and so much evidence on the placebo, demonstrates the mind's incredible power to heal. So that is crazy if it's his parents, just saying, okay, we can't do anything about it. Why not try? In terms of you, and I would throw everything at it to save a child, and certainly a child of mine. What I would say to you all is, I always say you need somebody's permission. But what you can do is say, if they think intention is hooey, what you can say to them is, do you mind if we pray for your son?
Yes.
We have a secular prayer we use, and just do it that way.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
And also you could say to them too, look, you know what? We're going to pray for stages. So we pray, we don't just say, okay, have it disappear overnight. But let's just take it in stages. It's a complex issue, illness, and maybe one of those stages is that they find a practitioner who actually believes there's some hope.
Yeah.
If they're open to something like that, you can have, a stage of some of the cancer cells going down, and whatever count they use to determine how well the child's doing, that improved, then something else improved, then something else improved. So take it in stages.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. That's really great advice. So you could be specific by stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking baby steps. I advise my students all the time about baby steps. And oftentimes it is getting the correct diagnosis, getting the right practitioner, finding out the cause. That's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean, one student of mine had terrible chronic fatigue. And she didn't know why. I mean, she couldn't walk the dog for more than 10 minutes, and she'd have to go lie down for, hours. So her group did an intention for her to find the source of why she was ill. And lo and behold, she gets some sort of intuition to check her dressing room to see if there's any kind of thing going on there. And she had some builders do this, and they discover total black mold behind her.
Gosh.
And this was causing it. As soon as they cleaned all of that up, I mean, she was lifting weights and hiking within weeks. It was astonishing. So that happens a lot. Another student of mine, Mitchell Dean, had chronic fatigue, and as a clinical psychologist, this was a really bad look for him. And he tried every alternative thing in the book. So his group also intended for him to find the cause. And he got a big intuitive hit to see a Chinese herbalist. And this herbalist said to him, "I'd like to check your liver filtration systems." And he goes on to find that one of them isn't working. And that's the thing that is allowing all kinds of toxins to enter his body and his brain. And as soon as they cleaned that up, his depression more or less disappeared. So that's a good baby step to find out the cause.
Can you set an intention for the family, and that there's a renewed sense of hope and optimism around health and well-being and the outcome?
I like your strategy,
yes,
Gina.
Yes. Can we, as part of this prayer group, part of it be, not just on the physical health of their son, but also around the optimism and hope for the family?
Definitely, you could do that. Absolutely do that, and be really specific about that they have optimism, hope about their son's outcome. You need their permission first. Absolutely. And again, I would just say, look, do you mind if we have a secular prayer we do for, can we do it for you and your family, your son, etc., and get their permission. And absolutely, I mean, we do intentions for everything. So it's state of mind, it's body, as I say, it's relationships, it's career, it's money. We have loads of people. I had one woman down to her last 200 pounds. She was UK based. And she was born with a birthmark. Her name is Bev. And she was born with a birthmark. And she had tried to cover it up for years, and then got to the point of recognizing that she really had to love it and love herself. So she did, and she wanted to set up a business and a website called Love Your Mark, but she didn't have any money for it. So her group did an intention for her. Lo and behold, she had worked for Lloyd's of London, the insurance company. And right after their intention, she gets a letter from Lloyd's of London saying, "You're eligible to apply for a special grant." She does, and she ends up getting loads of money, just all the money she needs to set up this business, this website, etc. So we see this all the time too. all kinds of things. People getting out of debt by sending intention, once again, very specifically. It really, really works. I wanted to also tell you, because I mentioned earlier about it not being like meditation. We did a brainwave study with Life University, which is the largest and most prestigious chiropractic university in the world. And they were intrigued by Power of Eight groups and put their neuroscience department at my disposal. So this was wonderful. We got student volunteers. We put an EEG cap on one member of each group. And the assumption we all had was that the brainwave activity was going to be really very close to that of meditation. And we were astonished, and the group leader, the neuroscientist leader, Dr. Stephanie Sullivan, was completely flabbergasted to see it was nothing like meditation. That it was complete opposite of meditation. Instead of increasing certain brainwaves, like alpha brainwaves, slightly slower brainwaves than ordinary waking consciousness, which is what happens in meditation, a lot of parts of the brain were being turned off. So the parietal lobes, the parts of the brain that sit toward the back of the head, they were dialed way down, and so were the parts of the brain involved with worry, doubt, negativity, the right frontal lobes. They were also dialed right down. Now, the interesting part about that is the parietal lobes, and to some degree the temporal lobes too, which were also dialed way down, they create separateness in us. They help us navigate through space. So they tell us, this is me, this is not me. So they were all dialed way down. And so were the parts of the brain involved in worry, doubt, negativity. So instead of looking like meditation, these brainwave signatures were almost identical to those recorded by Dr. Andrew Newberg, then of the University of Pennsylvania, who did brainwave studies on Sufi masters during chanting and Buddhist monks during ecstatic prayer. So these were people in an ecstatic state of oneness, as Buddhist monks are as well. But the amazing part of it was, it takes years to become a Buddhist monk or a Sufi master, or hours of priming to get into that state. We had student volunteers, most of whom had never even meditated before. Nobody had done Power of Eight stuff. And yet, within minutes, they were transported into this mystical state. And that's what I hear all the time from people who participate in intention experiments and in Power of Eight groups. They have electricity going up and down their arms. They talk about a lot of heat. They talk about feeling very otherworldly, that they are very much connected with the other participants or the group, whether or not they're on Zoom, as most of my groups are, they're working virtually, or they're in the same room. And of course, with the intention experiment, people are, as we are today, in front of a separate computer screen, and they're all thousands of miles away from each other, participants around the world. So this creates a state of ecstatic oneness, and it does it really quickly. I only ever do intention experiments or Power of Eight groups for 10 minutes. That's it. And we started that in 2007 when Dr. Schwartz and I did our first intention experiment. We said, how long should we hold this? Well, I don't know. If people haven't meditated, maybe 10 minutes is all they can manage to focus. And that's how we started with 10 minutes. And when we saw it worked, that's all we've done ever since. So we're talking about total novices for only 10 minutes, and they're transported into a state of the miraculous. So I always say, you don't need a sweat lodge. You don't need hours of prostration or disciplined practice. All you need is a group and a common intention, and you have a fast track to the miraculous.
And a 10 minutes. could be miraculous.
You could
in
be
10
magical.
minutes, Holly.
Gina, since I can only
I'm gonna
find
put that cap on, and it'll look really sad in the beginning, and then I'll be within 10 minutes miraculous.
Okay, since I can only
I'm excited. I seriously
strong arm
excited.
you and a few other people,
Yes,
I wouldn't get to 8. Okay, I don't have that many friends
Yeah, you should do it.
that I could strong arm.
Yeah.
So tell us about becoming part of your group.
Yes.
In 2023. 2023, I know is going to be an awesome year,
Yeah.
full of great changes because we were sick of the past, and so it would be a great time to start setting intentions.
Especially in this Aquarian period of time where
Yeah.
old systems crumble a little bit and new systems.
Yeah.
This is a whole new system that I hope for the human race we really embrace.
I agree.
So excited for your work, Lynn. I'm so excited for your work. So yes, how can we get involved?
Thank you. And, I actually am an Aquarian, so I'm really feeling like,
Of course
wow.
you are. You're
it's
brilliant.
time-
Listen,
No, that's, of course. Okay.
This is your season.
I'm the hack astrologer, I call myself. And so I would be like, okay, she talks good. That's Aquarian.
Yeah.
She's brilliant.
Yes.
She's innovative.
Yeah.
She's all those things. Beautiful. Aquarian. There she is.
Yep.
My husband is too. We are
Oh,
two
really?
Aquarians.
Oh, wow.
I love that.
Powerful
Power
couple.
couple. Yep.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you. I think it's such a perfect time to bring in the new, and we need to get rid of the old. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing on that front too. So with my class, it kicks off on February 4th. And what I do is I have 3 parts to it. I work with people all year long, and I teach with 6 2-hour live and interactive sessions. So we're on Zoom together, and you're live and interactive with me. So I can put you into groups, I can put you into pairs, I can do all kinds of interactive stuff with you. And I teach you all of the fundamentals of intention. Plus, as I say, using it with relationships, getting over your own doubt and your own self-sabotage and your own negativity, helping to protect you from other people's negativity without having to shield. I don't believe in shielding. And really, I don't believe in shielding. No. If we're all one, why do we want to block ourselves off from everybody else? So, but there's another technique and numerous techniques that you can use. And I really show people how to use Power of 8 groups, because you wouldn't believe how many people do it wrong. And it's very simple and effective, but you need to create a bunch of different situations to really maximize it. And we keep track of what's going on with everybody. And then part 2, I put you in a Power of 8 group. Based on your time zone and your preferred time of meeting. And you rather love this. I love the Beatles, being as old as I am, and my husband loves the Beatles. So we needed, because we have lots of people who join this course every year, we needed a category that had a lot of different names to it. When we first started out, we were using Egyptian pharaohs, and we used birds and animals, I think, one time, and all kinds of things like that. Greek gods. This time we used Beatles songs. So our group are named Beatles songs. I Am the Walrus, Yesterday, Revolution, all of that.
Day's night. Yeah.
I know, A Hard Day's Night. Nobody wants that one. And so we put you into groups, and I have people meet every week and keep careful records of what's happening to them and the rest of the group over the year. So, and then the third part of it is I meet you regularly in intention clinics to make sure you're doing it right, you're doing the homework, you're mastering the different techniques, and I throw you a few more little nuggets besides and show you some more techniques and some more things to do with intention. So it's over a whole year, and what is so beautiful about it, and this is one of the keys to why this works, is I had a guy called Jerry in 2020 who was part of the course during lockdown. Yeah. And he said at the end of it, wow, I had the best lockdown. I've probably been closer to people and had better relationships than I've ever had in my life. In fact, he wanted more, he said. So he joined the next year's class, and he continues to meet with the 2020 group. There's 11 of them. And he then met with the 2021 group, and he continued to have an amazing arrangement with them too. And transformational stuff happened to him too. But he said what the big miracle for him is, I now know what love is.
Yeah.
And that is one of the key factors here in this transformation.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out, why does this work? And of course, intention is one big thing. Group effects, there's a kind of group collective effervescence that goes on with group. We all raise each other's game, but altruism is one of the big pieces here, because most of the time you're intending for someone else. And what I have discovered over and over again is when people are stuck, when they get off of themselves, miracles start happening to them. And there's plenty of science to support it. I mean, the science of altruism demonstrates altruism is like wearing a bulletproof vest. People who do things for other people live longer, healthier, happier lives. If you're ill with something and you help somebody else with the same illness, you're more likely to heal. And I've seen this over and over again in my work. So when people are stuck, I will invariably say to them, get off of yourself. Start intending for someone else, and their life, the sender's life, gets moving. And I've seen this again and again and again. Andy Spiros, she needed a new job. She had sold her gift store business. She was going through a divorce. She was a young woman. She had 2 young kids, and she was really worried because she kept applying, even though she was a very talented marketer and coach, couldn't get anything. So I finally said, exasperatedly, Andy, get off of yourself. I have a perfect person for you to intend for. And that was a kid called Luke, who was 15 and broke up with his first serious girlfriend. And in a fit of adolescent angst, he threw himself off of a 40-foot structure onto hard ground. So Luke broke every bone in his body, had brain damage, nerve damage, and doctors didn't think he was going to live. So I had the whole master class sending intention to Luke. And the upshot was, not only did Luke respond every time we sent intention, he got out of the hospital in record time, and he's a healthy 19, 20-year-old now.
Oh, wow.
But the key element was what happened to Andy, because Andy gets a call out of nowhere the next week from somebody she doesn't even know, offering her what turned out to be her dream job. And she went on, instead of a rancorous divorce, she ended up having such a good divorce that the lawyers for both sides said, could you give us the blueprint for this so we can do this for our other clients?
Yeah.
So that's what happens all the time with the altruism. And of course, as I mentioned to you, oneness is the other secret sauce here as to why it works. Because we don't experience ourselves in the field. We are all part of this giant energy field I've called the field. But we don't experience life that way. We will say we're all connected, but we don't experience life that way. We've been programmed to experience life as separation and being lonely little people on a lonely planet in a lonely universe. So with a Power of 8 group, you suddenly end up with that mystical state of oneness. You experience what has been called a peak experience by people like the psychologist Abraham Maslow, where you have altered senses, you have this overwhelming sense of oneness, blinding epiphanies of meaning, a sense of rejuvenation. All of this happens. And I think that is the state. That is the key state for transformation and healing. And that's what happens with it. So I think there are all these things that happen with a Power of 8 group. And with us all being so isolated, you asked before, do you need qualifications? The only qualification you need is to be a human being. And you can join a Power of 8 group and as I find over and over again with my master class, these people become your intention family. I have people who've been meeting since 2013 religiously every week. And that is these people, the idea that a group of total strangers have your back, are there for you, is totally healing.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a sense of community we all long for, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
and more friends.
absolutely.
More friends.
Yeah.
And can make more friends.
I love it.
So you don't have to have 8. You can. It doesn't have to be 8. It can be 6. It can be 12. As long as I told you the derivation of the name. It's got a lot of amazing mystical, connotations. Chinese love 8. It's a sideways infinity sign, but you don't need 8. You just need a group. More than 5 or more. Yeah, 8 or so, exactly.
Yeah.
I also want to tell you, just because you talked about things collapsing and we need new things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm doing, and people can find out this by signing up to my website, I am going to offer, I want to call in all of my Power of 8 groups, because I realize, I've been thinking about we need an army of change makers.
Yes.
And I already have an army of change makers. There's thousands, tens of thousands of Power of 8 groups around the world. So I want to offer all of them, and I will be putting this on my website, a little, it'll be a blueprint for change. It's going to be how to use your Power of 8 group to also bring about change locally and ultimately nationally, internationally. So I'm going to give people free this document, this blueprint, and lots of other material every so often, and get this little army of change makers to start making change from the ground up, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen with a new president or a new prime minister. No. It's going to happen from the ground up.
Absolutely. 100%. And I also think part of this change we need to stop looking to one person or one change or one thing to come in and solve. We all can solve it. Without even the one person, to be quite honest.
And so stop all the blame.
Stop it. Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. You're gonna inspire your people and your army.
I love it.
I love this. It's so good. I feel better about 2023 already.
I feel better.
I know. I do have one quick question.
Yes, of course.
If you don't mind, Lynn, I'm so curious, because we've been doing this work now for quite a while, and on the podcast for about 3 years. And one of the things that keeps coming up, and I'm just curious your take on it, is intention setting and this it just takes 10 minutes thing. And people who say, gosh, that's just kind of lazy. That's not like, how is that going to do? Like, there has to be some forward progress. You have to do something. Action. That's not going to change. So I'm curious how you would address that when it comes to.
I'm sure she has.
I can, by her face, it's so good. It's going to be good. Hunker down, people who think that way. Here she comes.
Well, first of all, that betrays a complete misunderstanding of what a human being is. I mean, we are all energy, and our thoughts are one other type of energy. So when you start thinking of yourself as one giant ball of vibrating packets of energy interacting with other energy, you start thinking very differently about thoughts and their power. And you stop breaking down the idea of body does one thing, mind does something else. You also need to just look at the giant evidence for the placebo effect to understand that thoughts can heal enormously. You have to look at my body of evidence now. I've run 40 intention experiments. Everything, as I said, from making seeds grow faster and purifying water to lowering violence in war-torn areas. We did one where we lowered violence in the most violent neighborhood in America, St. Louis, Missouri, by 43%, compared to all of the areas around the neighborhood we did intention for that continued to go up with a trajectory of violence. We did an intention for the Jerusalem, and I had participants from 9 different locations. 8 locations were different conference rooms in different Arab cities. And the 9th location was an auditorium of Israeli Jews. And we had cameras in each location and special equipment so that they could talk to me, they could talk to each other, and we could all communicate together. So we did an intention to lower violence in Jerusalem. And by the end of it, I had had to mediate between the two sides because the Arabs wouldn't talk to the Israelis and vice versa. Afterward, they're all talking to each other, sending love to each other, sending your God is my God, big, big love fest. And that's happened also with Arabs and Americans. I did an intention for one of the anniversaries of 9/11. So the idea that thoughts can do nothing, we got press afterward with that Arab-Israeli one in both Jerusalem and in Kuwait saying it's little things like this that may make much more of a difference than all of the diplomacy or politics in the world. So I think that whoever says things like that is very, very short-sighted, doesn't understand the current science, and certainly doesn't understand what it means to be a human being.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, that's a mic drop moment.
Yeah, exactly. Period. Yes, that is.
It.
So great.
Okay, so Lynn, you are a rock star. You are innovative. You're a pioneer. You are a blessing to the world. And we thank you and honor your work so much. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, this was one of the most inspiring conversations I've ever had. I mean, you are just, and you can just feel through the screen this just commitment and excitement and love and passion for what you do. And thank God you do what you do.
Absolutely. We're going to have everything in the show notes. We think you should run out and do your own power of 8 or so.
Or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And start doing get the book.
Get the book.
That has all of the 13 things in there. And
it'll be a great framework to start.
And then you can be ready for February.
So it starts as a book club and then it turns into a power of 8-ish intention setting powerhouse
in
club.
2023.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
It's been so much fun being with both of you. Thank you so much for having me.
Likewise. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.